welcome to NPR, and we are here and I'm interviewing the lovely Esi Edugyan. And for those who don't know, Esi is an award-winning Canadian author, and her book Washington Black was shortlisted for one of the most sought-after awards in the literary world, the Booker Prize. How are you doing, and welcome to the show?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing well.
Have you ever been to a prison radio station before?
No, I have never been to a prison radio station before, but I have done prison visits.
Yes, man. Is it in the UK or is it any other countries?
It was actually like about 15 minutes from my home.
Okay.
Yeah, I live on Vancouver Island in a little town called Colwood, just outside of Victoria, and the next municipality over has a prison. So I went, they chose my book for their book club, Washington Black, and 100%. I went and had a nice
I'm not going to lie to you, first of all, Esi.
Yeah.
Washington Black, the book, is very interesting. It just blew me out of the water, man. I'm not going to lie to you. First time ever listening to an audiobook, and I got intrigued with your book in it. So I just want to give yourself a big up yourself, man, Esi, man. I'm not going to lie to you, man.
No, thank you so much. And Dion Graham, who does the audiobook, he gives a brilliant performance.
That's the guy that I wanted to know. You see, that guy, he's so funny when he's acting up like the characters. So, for instance, if you actually listen to Washington Black when he's speaking, it's like he has like a squeaky voice, and the way he does it, he's like, "Yes, master." It's so sick.
Yeah, he's an amazing actor.
Yeah, man, very amazing. First of all, I open up the book here without knowing your history, without knowing anything, and as soon as I got engaged to that book, I was like to myself, like, how did she get this history part of it and everything? So I'm going to start off with the very important questions that everyone wants to know. And it is, for those who don't know, can you summarize a little short story for us, about the whole book?
Yeah, so Washington Black is a novel that takes place across 6 years.
Yeah.
It starts in 1830, and it follows the life of a young boy called George Washington Black. And at the outset of the book, he is a laborer on a plantation. He's an enslaved boy. And so he's, all he's ever known, is his hardship and toil and brutality. And so he's really shocked to one day be taken to live in the quarters of his new master's brother, who's a man called Christopher Wilde, nicknamed Titch. Yes, exactly. And, because he thinks that it's a death sentence. And so he's shocked to discover that Titch he's a man who thinks of himself as an abolitionist, as somebody who believes in the equality of men, although that comes into question later in the novel. And it's through Titch kind of exposing him to these elements in the natural world that he's never kind of considered before, and bringing him to an understanding that he's really gifted himself in doing science and in drawing, and learns to read. And then he understands that he has all of these gifts to offer the world, and that he's like a fully realized human being.
The way you make these characters come alive is so crazy, man. My favorite character has to be Titch and Big Kit. I'm not gonna lie to you. Big Kit, I like her, man. She reminds me of like a guardian angel, she's rough, she's tough.
She's tough.
Yeah. I like Big Kit. But yeah, man, Washington Black has been shortlisted and won numerous awards in the literary world. The Booker judges described it as wonderfully written, extremely imaginative, and profoundly engaging. Why do you think this novel has been so successful?
I think it's impossible to quantify why something does well or connects with readers when it does. I think the whole publishing industry is still trying to figure out the alchemy of that. But I do feel really lucky and privileged and grateful that this book was seen.
Yeah, man. Very interesting book, man. I have I wouldn't say similarities, but there is certain, because back in the day, slavery was very, very harsh reality for people to grow up in that. And it put me into another world where I didn't know that people like Washington Black was born into slavery, and their masters named them, and all they know, and the best thing, highlight of the day, is licking the master's plate. And I'm thinking, I'm here going chicken chip shops and and eating food and that, and then coming up to those types of situations is kind of crazy. And the main purpose of the book is trying to find home, if you get what I'm saying. So a lot of people in prison can relate to that. So when they read the books, they can actually have empathy with Washington Black and what he's going through and everything. So these are really relevant ideas to the National Prison Radio audience. So, like, what would you say about the importance of finding your place in this world?
Yeah, I love that question because I think it's one of the central questions of everybody's lives is how do you locate this sense of home?
Yeah, man.
What does home mean? I think just when I was younger, I had a sense of home as being, of course, home is where you're born in a place and that's home.
Yeah.
But I don't think that really gets the complexity of what it means to belong in a place. And I think I kind of came to the same conclusion that Washington does in this book is that home, for some people, like, is a physical location. It's the town that they were born in, or even like a connection to a house that you grew up in. But for a lot of us, you have to kind of build your own sense of home or come to your own ideas of what it means to belong in a place. And for me, home is rooted in people.
Yeah.
It's in community.
Yes.
It's in this sense of where do you get your feeling of love?
Yeah.
And, who do you love and who loves you?
Yeah,
like
100%.
that for me is home.
Yeah, man, 100%. I believe, like, people, same as love, you feel like you belong. And that's, like, one thing that is interesting about the book is that in the beginning part of the book, Kit wanted to commit suicide and took Wash back and said, listen, we're going to home. Like, if you die here, we're going to go home. And Wash didn't have a home. Like, Wash wasn't raised in the African countryside. He wasn't brought here.
Yeah, well, he was born on the plantation in Barbados, but as an enslaved boy, he didn't have like a really strong sense of connection to the land, right? And how do you have a sense of community when, people are being randomly killed? That you have somebody who you love and then, they die.
Yeah.
They're murdered essentially the next minute. So, yeah, this is obviously he doesn't have a strong feeling of home. And then the whole novel really is about him just coming to a sense of recognizing that home is a place that you have to construct for yourself. And that home isn't, for him, like a physical location.
Yeah.
It's the love of Tana.
Yeah.
It's, the sense of friendship that he gets from...
Titch.
Well, initially from Titch and then from people like Medway, who he meets. This is a bit of a spoiler, halfway through the book. Yeah. Just this friendship. And that's home for him.
Yeah. What research did you do to help you create the settings of the plantation in Barbados? And is it based on real events? Because I'm not going to lie to you, the way you put people inside that type of scenario, flies everywhere, the heat. Like, you can see when Big Kit gets smashed by her face with a plate and there's like blood all over her face, and the way you described that and everything, it's like events that not people in this day and age would understand or would be familiarized to.
Yeah, I did a lot of research was just sort of done like in the library, reading histories. But it was a lot of heavy stuff.
Yeah, a lot of heavy stuff.
A lot of heavy stuff.
Had me thinking through my travels, I'm not going to lie to you. I was like...
Just this sense of casual brutality that existed on so many of these plantations in the Caribbean, where because of the location on the triangle trade, there was a sense that if somebody died, you could just get more cargo.
Yeah.
And so
they treated them like livestock.
Yeah, they were particularly brutal. This was really hard research to do, to have to read all of that and then to have to turn around and reproduce it on the page was really hard, very taxing, but necessary. I mean, you have to see what Washington has been through in order to understand the impact of what he's able to achieve.
100%. So Wash is a really likable and aspiring character. How did you create his character?
Yeah, it's always so hard to talk about because I think in any novel, the creation of the character is something where, like, when you start out writing the novel, you have no idea who this person is, or you have a very basic idea of who you'd like them to be. And then when you're writing, you start to discover who they are. Like, they start to behave in ways or tell you how they want to behave, and then you just kind of have to follow it. Yeah. And then there's a point maybe halfway through the book where you realize that you understand this person, like, implicitly. You know exactly how they're going to react in every situation, and then you can just kind of follow them or write out their reality.
That must be, like, very interesting to have your character come to life, especially from paper. And you lean towards I'm not gonna lie, I used to watch more.
Yeah.
When I started listening to it, I leaned towards him thinking his story is interesting, the way he talks, the way he speaks, the way he thinks. He's not a dumb person that everyone claims to think he is.
Yeah.
He's a very smart, intellectual person. And that's what I like about Wash. And for you to create that type of person is, it's and bringing all the other characters, they all complement each other. That's what I say. They all complement each other, man. That's very good.
Thank you. No, but there is that thing of stepping out into the world, and because of your past or because of maybe how you look, this sense of being underestimated. And I think even as I move through the world today, I feel like that's something that comes to bear on my reality. You walk into a place and somebody makes a snap judgment based on how you look or other things, and you know that that's not your full measure.
Yeah.
And I think, just in terms of shaping the psychology of Washington, that's something that I certainly could take from my own experience. And because that's his whole story, is moving through a world that doesn't understand that, a person like him, an enslaved man, can possess enormous intelligence and have all of these gifts and have so much to offer the world.
Great drawer, by the way. He's a great drawer.
Yeah, wonderful artist.
Yeah, wonderful artist as well. My next question for you is, the story shows the extreme brutality of life for slaves. It's very hard to read about and it's very distressing. How were you able to cope with this when you are in depth of your writing, and is it possible to find peace and acceptance of the past?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I found it really hard to confront the ways that people were so casually vicious and so casually were willing to deny others their humanity, and just the casual violence and also kind of the disgusting lengths that some people took to, the not so casual violence where you're sort of, people being kind of staked, covered in honey and staked on anthills to be stung to death, just like kind of quality of a mind that would come up with such a punishment. You just think that this is completely beyond the pale. And so, reading about this kind of stuff, you just start to despair.
Yeah, man.
For humanity, oh my God. But there were a lot of people who, abolition happened and the abolishment of the slave trade, and then eventually slavery did happen. And this happened in part because people who were brought up to think one way about enslaved people changed their minds and then worked to change other people's minds, to change the minds of a whole society. Yeah. And that's an incredible thing. And that was just so amazing.
It is 100%, man. When I read the book and I see all the distress and stuff and everything, I always have the bare thoughts in my mind, thinking to myself, it must have been hard for them to come out of that situation in the first place. Afterwards, how they felt, you get me? Because certain people would have been protesting to it, because especially if something was protested here right now that we wanted to happen, people that don't want it to happen will come up afterwards, even if it's finished. They'll come up afterwards and defend it. You get me? So racism was never demolished after slavery. So
yeah, exactly. No, that's an apt point. That this is something that, just because, well, not just because it's no small thing that laws changed, that abolition was codified through law. That doesn't mean that everybody's thinking changed on race. And in fact, I would argue that, we're still living in times where we do have a lot of prejudice and racism, and that this is something that is, still a battle. Yeah,
man, still a battle. And I think all around the world, especially, man. Yeah. UK, America, loads of other places as well, Canada. I would say there was some harsh stuff in the book where you wrote, so for instance, there was a guy called James. You only met him once in the beginning part. He died when he got burnt alive and let all the other slaves watch him. Big Kit got smashed in her face by a plate because she tried to wipe the master's thing. All of those type of stuff that you wrote must have been stressing. So what was the most hardest part of the story you had to write?
I think, all of that violence at the beginning of the book. And I will say it's always a risky thing to start a book or shockload and put all of the violence at the beginning of the book.
In the beginning,
and, I had a really great editor in Canada who, because I was nervous about this, just turning off readers. But then again, you can't write a book about such a character without showing what he's come out of. But the editor was, he saw immediately that it needed to be there.
I think that's what attracts the readers in the beginning. Because when I first pressed play on on that first part, I was like, it took me straight into it, and I was like, yo.
Yeah. Well, I did hear from readers who did say, I couldn't keep going. I had to put it down. Or I had to trust that you were going to take me out of this at some point because I couldn't, read 200 pages of that. Okay, man. Yeah, I understand that.
So on a good note, my other question for you would be, what was the most inspiring and uplifting part of your writing?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this I like to get into. I think I was just, people ask me, like, who's your favorite character that you've, in that particular novel? And of course, it's Washington. Like, it was just such a, when you start a novel, you don't really know where things are going. At least I'm not somebody who does like a big outline. Yeah. And so I didn't really know what his fate was, where he was going to end up. And it was so like this joyful process for me to just see him overcoming all of these obstacles and just coming into a sense of self and agency and being okay in the world and finding love. Yeah. These kinds of things are why I've always enjoyed books, is watching people kind of triumph over adversity and show their resilience. Yeah.
You named the plantation Faith Plantation. It's ironic because it's Faith Plantation. Faith is supposed to be for hope, but the slaves don't have no hope in that plantation.
Yes.
And that's the one thing that intrigued me as well. You said Faith Plantation, and it's like when these slaves hear Faith Plantation, that it's like a shiver behind their back, and they're thinking, yo, it's not hope. It's despair. Yes. And it's like, when you put them two together, I was thinking, that is ironic. I can't...
But it is rooted in history. Like, when you say hope, I was like, yes, there was a large plantation in Barbados called Hope, which is sort of what I was playing with that, when I was naming mine Faith, because there was so much irony in the naming. And slaves would be given these kind of grandiose names. A name like George Washington would not have been out of place, like in the history of a plantation. And it's just this sort of almost extra layer of mockery and, just disdain, right?
And they treat them like furniture.
At best, like furniture.
At best, like furniture. My next question would be, what do you want people to take away from the story? And what do you think is the key message of the story?
It's so hard, right? Because it's like, I think as the writer, there are just so many threads and you're thinking of so many things and you've got so many worlds to connect that it's hard to think of like one key thing to take away. But I would want the reader to take away a sense of what life was on a plantation in that era, because we all, at least, before I started researching, it's like I had a vague idea of what plantation life might look like. And maybe my ideas were based on life on American plantations, just because I am North American. I wasn't so much thinking of the Caribbean. So just to get a historical knowledge of that, and also what the day-to-day life of an enslaved person would look like. But also, like, I want people to come away with a sense of, like, having witnessed the trajectory of this young boy who we see at 11 and taking us all the way through until he's reached a kind of age of manhood, like when he's 18, and a sense of being a witness to his life and seeing his road to personhood. And I think that for me is the joy of fiction, is to get to live alongside somebody for whatever years.
Period,
exactly.
I'm not gonna lie to you. What I took from there was, first of all, we never judge a book by its cover. That's the number one. Never judge a book by its cover. No,
it's really important never to judge a book by its cover, because the writer often has not chosen the cover.
100. That's number one place to take it. What I took from the book is that as well, life is a blessing. Everything that we have right now, if we wake up early in the morning, we got water, we got food, we got everything, we got to say thank God.
Definitely.
Back in the day was very terrible for people, and it was to a point where you feel like you can't even comprehend what they have gone through and everything. So it makes you grow closer to them people and feel sorry for them, feel the same type of distress, but not as they feel it, but like similar to it. So it's like we're going through all of that whole journey. And it just makes you, I'm not gonna lie to you, this book will make a person double think about their life and try to get the good things out and not think about the bad things, if you get what I'm saying. So if you had trouble with rent or anything else, you'd be like, oh, I got trouble with this. And then you read that book and thinking, oh, forget that, man. I'm okay, man. I'm cool.
No, but I love that you say that, because it's like empathy, right? This feeling of going through this experience with this character and then feeling really deeply, and then having it affect how you go about your own life, or how you think about your own life.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my troubles are not these troubles.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I want.
That's what it is. And
I
it's
think
like,
what any writer wants.
that's exactly what they want,
to take away.
And it's like, so for instance, there'll be some happy parts that you're thinking, how are these lot happy about this?
Yeah.
Like, a guy will just get in a little pastry, put it in his mouth, and he'll be like, hey, don't touch that. It's for later. And you're thinking, yo, this is mad.
Yeah, like those pastries aren't for you. The crumbs, that get left over on the plate, those might be for you if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Like, think about that kind of an existence.
That's mad. It says that like the story of Washington Black is set in the 19th century. And what do you think about the state of race relations now in the 21st century?
So, I think the miracle of the abolishment of the slave trade and then the eventual abolishment of slavery was just, the kind of social, political pivot that had to occur in people's thinking. Like, because slavery was so codified into all spheres of society. You didn't think about it. A bowl of sugar would be set on the breakfast table every morning, and you weren't thinking about, where the sugar came from. You had a general idea, but you don't really think about it. And you just put it in your tea every morning and you go off. The first people to sort of stop and think, where is this coming from? And, who are the laborers who produce this sugar that's at my table every morning? And what do their lives look like? Like, to have that first shift in thought, I think it was like radical, like a radical shift in thinking. And just amazing that these people could then go on to convince others to start to think about these things and to start to build a sense of morality. We're living in a time where it's still imperfect. We're still not able to kind of get past prejudices and hatreds and all of this. But that I feel like it's within us. But it's an ongoing project just because of how I think people are.
I think some people are, I wouldn't say born into racism, but I think like raised towards thinking badly towards other people that don't look like them.
Yeah,
You get what I'm saying?
I mean, I have 2 children. And obviously my children have I know a lot of people with other people with children. Yeah. And it's just amazing to see this kind of state of purity. I think that people come into the world bearing and the kind of acceptance that children can show because everything is new, right?
Yeah.
So the kind of acceptance that the children have for difference is enormous. Yeah. And this is kind of the thing that gives me hope, because I feel like so much of prejudice is learned. We don't come into the world with
No one comes in the world with hate, jealousy, evilness, you get me? It will be like they will be raised into it, or someone will say that's normal. Yeah. And then you're thinking to yourself like, okay, if that's normal, then I'm going to be normal about it with it.
Especially if you grew up at a certain time or a certain neighborhood, and maybe these are or within a certain family, and these are sort of some of the thoughts or sentiments, within the home, and then obviously you're colored by that, and then that's what you come to understand.
100%. Do you think a person that's ignorant to this and he's like the same color as us, that will say, I haven't seen it because I don't look for it, I don't do this, and they're ignorant towards that type of situation? But then when you've got people that, so I was thinking, would ignorant people have a peaceful life compared
I guess ignorance is bliss, right?
That's
like
what it is.
The world is a wonderful place because I don't acknowledge it. Maybe in some ways, if you have that level of blinders on, that's a gift. Because your world is a happier place.
Because I'm not gonna lie, certain people could go crazy off it. Some people actually would push forward to it and everything. Like for me, when I look at these type of situations, I'm actually intrigued and I want to do something about it. I want to be like pushing forward to it about it. So like for the people listening in, especially for people in our skin colour and that are suffering from these type of situations, because it's very hard for a prisoner to stand up for themselves when they come out as well.
Right.
Because they got the whole world against them, man.
Right.
So my next question is similar to that. So it would be like, everyone listening to National Prison Radio, do you have any message for them?
Oh, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels big.
Yeah.
But it feels almost like an honor too to be asked that question.
100. Because there's a lot of, I probably think there's a lot of women that want to become authors inside prison and they have the same type of skin colour as you and that want to actually push forward and feel motivated about it or even feel driven about your book. So I was thinking, do you have any people that...
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think maybe just for all of us, it's a very hard thing to hold on to this idea of having a strong voice and having your voice be meaningful, like having your voice count in the world. And I think so maybe writing is one way to start to understand, I guess, just the weight of your own thoughts and how those thoughts might impact others.
Yeah.
And so I guess I would say, yeah, like your reality has weight, and that I think one of the most clarifying things that you can do is to write down your thoughts.
I used to do that when I was inside as well.
Yeah?
Yeah. I used to keep a journal, write down any of my thoughts. I used to love writing poems, so
Oh,
it used to be a lot. And I'm advocating for people inside prison as well. Like people inside the cells, when they open up their books, they love writing. So it'll be like interesting, just the way you said it, like little tips.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like write down everything that occurs to you. Write down everything that you want to express, because maybe there's something unjust and you want to kind of write about that, or you want to write about something that you discovered in the day that seemed small but that felt significant, or something that you love that you didn't realize that you loved before I think writing is a process of discovery.
And like escapism as well.
Escapism, yeah. But also like the sense of discovering essays, for instance. Like the word essay comes from the French, essayer, which is to try. And if you look at writing as being this kind of way of trying to understand what it is that you're thinking and feeling. Because I think it's hard to even know what you're feeling and thinking until you've written it down in a lot of ways.
Yeah, 100%.
Writing becomes a way of understanding how we live.
I think that's a good saying for the people inside when they hear that. Because it is, most of the, I think like, I want to say half of the population in prison, but I think quarter of the population love writing inside prison. They love writing, man. Letters, stories, poems, everything. So when they hear those type of like advice and that, I think it'll do a lot on them.
Yeah, like write it all down, get it all out.
Yeah, man.
And then it's like, even I used to keep a journal, but I don't anymore. And often I would be surprised by what I was putting down. Like it's like to get rid of it, to exercise
self-therapy. That's what I call it.
Yeah, exactly.
Self-therapy.
Yeah.
My next question would be, the theme of the 2023 Black History Month is celebrating our sisters. It's all about recognizing and celebrating the achievement of Black women, which too often been overlooked or forgotten. So why do you think this theme is important?
Yeah, I think for the very reason that you just said, those words overlooked and, deemed not important. I think that, there's been so much dismissing of the achievements of marginalized people that, it's really important to kind of resurrect those histories and to look at them, and especially the histories and achievements of Black women.
Speaking of women, most of the favourite characters are men. So I was going to ask you, what is your favourite woman character inside that Washington Black community?
I think I'd have to say Tana, simply because she's like the only female character who... Actually, no, there's Big Kid as well.
Yeah, I like Big Kid. That's my favourite female character. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm with you. I think Big Kid slightly edges out Tana, even though I have a lot of affection for Tana just because of how she is in the world. Yeah. But Big Kid is fierce.
Yeah, man.
Big Kid,
she's like a big guardian angel, man.
Yeah, she's like a big guardian angel. She's like the ferocious mother that that sort of sets everything, to right. Like, I think that, without her being in Washington's life, I just don't think he would have made it.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Big Kid reminds me of that auntie that you always have that says to you, listen, you got to eat your vegetables. You got to go to sleep.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna lie to you. That's why I related to her so much. I was thinking, she reminds me of my auntie, man.
Yeah.
Like, she reminds me of this. I'm thinking, Big Kid is lit. Like, I like the Big Kid. My next question would be, what would you say to someone who says Black History Month should be about celebrating the achievements of all Black people and don't understand the focus on women?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's important to look at the achievements of all marginalized people and to resurrect them. But I think specifically like Black women can be very marginalized.
Yeah.
You know, there's gender at play as well as race. With the two, this can kind of create a sort of like double invisibility
100%.
factors. So yeah, I would definitely agree that it's a wonderful thing to celebrate Black women.
100%, man. Black women are so strong. That's number one. I ain't gonna lie to you. I got a lot of Black independent women inside my family, and I think without them, I wouldn't be the man who I am now. So big up to all the Black women out there. And my second last question for you would be: you are one of the women we are all celebrating this month because of your amazing storytelling. How does that feel?
I think that's great, of course.
100%.
I think that's wonderful. No, I'm really honored. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you, man. It was a pleasure to have you like speak here as well, man. It's brilliant, man. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of starstruck because like I was reading the book the whole week, and I'm thinking, yo, man. And I saw your interviews online. I'm thinking, yeah, man, she's probably famous. And for those who don't know, I think they might come out with a show with your book soon, man.
Yeah, there's Sterling K. Brown, the
That
actor.
guy, yeah, he's sick, man.
He was amazing. So his production company bought the book and teamed up with Hulu and Disney to do a 10-part limited series
on Washington Black.
And they shot the series across. It was a very long shoot.
Did it finish? Did it finish shooting?
They finished shooting last August.
Yes,
so
I can't wait. I'm not gonna lie to you. I can't wait to watch that.
Yes.
I can't wait, man.
Yeah, but the only thing is, it went into post. They finished it all. You know, they're working on special effects, and then the writer's strike hit.
Oh.
So I think we would have seen it already, but the strike has just been going on so long. So so much is dependent on when a deal gets reached.
Okay, all right, that's calm, man. Last question would be: why is storytelling so important for Black history and global history?
Storytelling is one of the ways in which we can begin to understand ourselves as human beings. I guess sharing this experience as we move through our world. I always felt like, as a student, that I'm sitting in history class and they're throwing dates at me, and I'm just I don't remember anything. And but if there was a story, if somebody told the story of a certain historical figure, I always remembered the details about that particular person, even while the dates were kind of lost on me.
Okay.
And I think there's something about storytelling that stays with us. I think understanding the stories of those who came before us, or even, understanding the stories of those who live alongside us, like, this is how we make sense of the world. This is how we understand the impact of human life passing through. Life is so ephemeral. Lives they come to an end. What does it all mean?
Yeah.
I think storytelling is one of the ways that, that we start to understand that, okay, there's meaning here. There's a sense to all of this. It gives us a sense that, when you're writing the story or even when you're reading it, that there's a shape to things. Yeah. Because I think we go through life and it feels like sometimes so random.
So
like,
no
how did that happen, you think? Like, I was just enjoying my day and suddenly some crazy thing happens. Yeah. And what on earth did that mean? And I think stories, they console us with the sense that life isn't as random as it can sometimes feel.
100%. Thank you for coming here today, Esi Edugyan. I'm lucky to have you here. I was going to ask you, do you have any requests or shouts for the people to listen to? Or any requests, like tracks? You can pick a song for the radio.
I'd like to request the song Hold Up by Beyonce because, well, I love the song. I just think it's such an unusual, wonderful song and very danceable. But also because it seems like it's an expression of power and resilience, and I adore it.